Hey guys, Positive here, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the Soviet Tier 10 tank destroyers, the Object 263. So I actually personally don't like this tank, but I've had some pretty solid games in it. I do pretty well in it actually, and I somehow ended up playing it in tournaments for WoT. So I thought I'd give you guys a guide on how to play this Soviet battering ram. First, we're going to start by looking at like the armor profile and going over some loadout things, and then we can jump right into some gameplay. Hey guys, so here we've got the Object 263 pulled up here in Armor Inspector. If you've never seen Object 263's armor profile, it's pretty intimidating. So this casemate here, it's 250 millimeters nominal thickness, but it's effectively like 350 versus heat, and like the upper plate is also 250. Like you're never going to pen these parts. Frontally, the 263, like one of the biggest weak spots is going to be this lower plate. So everyone's going to pen it pretty much no matter the angle. As you can see, like this doesn't get that much more effective even at ridiculous angles. So you have to, if you're playing a 263, you have to cover this because if people have a shot on it, they will pen no matter what. And then the other major weak spot is actually this mantlet. So Armor Inspector doesn't show this, but like there is a 0mm primary armor plate kind of in between this mantlet. So if they all they have to do is pen this mantlet and they'll damage your tank. So as you can see, this is only 250 millimeters of spaced armor, and it's around 280. So any tier 10 tank is going to pen this with gold. Even tanks with really awful heat pen like the bot shot and like the Object 140, those will also go through with heat ammunition if they look at you straight on. Now, because this poor gun mantlet, what this means with the 263 is if you have a shot on them, they have a shot on you. And there's not much you can do to really negate this. Even if you use the very limited gun depression of this tank, the effective thickness only goes up to around 300. So that is definitely one of the major issues with this tank. Also, other weak spots, if you're shooting at a 263, since this is such a low tank, often you'll be above it. So you can actually shoot down onto this 30mm engine deck. So everything at tier 9 and higher will have a gun that is capable of overmatching this 30mm engine deck. And this is oftentimes pretty easy pen. As you can see, it's like 250 millimeters effective versus heat. And in some parts, they'll say it's higher if I lower the angle, but this is just with heat, which has no normalization. And so APCR shells will go straight through that. Other problems with this tank include these giant sides. It's like a billboard on the side of a highway, and it's only 80 millimeters thick. So a common mistake I see 263 drivers doing is they have a tendency to over angle. So if we look at this in confrontation mode, because this tank is so long, like it is really easy to make a mistake and just over angle just by a little bit, and that'll make this a pretty easy pen, especially if something has heat ammunition. As you can see, I'm shooting at this with an IS-4's heat shell. Also frontally, you do have this little strip. It's 250 millimeters thick, just like the upper plate and the casemate. However, it is completely flat, but at most ranges, this is going to be much harder to pen than, say, this gun mantlet. I know Armor Inspector says it's red, but that's because you're not hitting any primary armor. You're actually hitting the rear armor in this back model. So, like, Armor Inspector shows it as red. This is pennable in-game. Don't worry about it. Now, normally I would bring up the 263 and show you the stats on something like Tank Compare. However, the 263 doesn't really have an analog as far as other tanks go, so we can just take a look at the stats in Armor Inspector because nothing really compares to the 263 in terms of its role. The 263 on the battlefield is a battering ram. You just use the armor and the DPM and you can play super aggressive with it. Now, the 263 actually has the best DPM at tier 10, as far as I know. You've got 3,247 base DPM and 460 alpha damage. That is ridiculous. This thing will just tear things apart. And it's got really good AP pen, which is enough to just shred through most heavies as well. Admittedly, somewhere where this is lacking is the premium ammunition. As you can see, only has 330 millimeters on its APCR shells. That's not great, but like it'll work for things like E100 turrets, and I think that APCR shell is one of my pet peeves with this tank. I'd much rather have like those really massive like 380 millimeter heat shells that you might get on something like a 268 or a Jagdpanzer 100. And then also things to watch out for is this tank only has 4 degrees of gun depression. This is a major issue, especially because the gun is rear mounted. So if you're trying to hull down, it is very difficult, and you'll oftentimes have to fidget with the tank just to find shots, just because this 4 degrees is so awkward. Other issues are this really small gun arc, 7 degrees to either side, and again, rear mounted gun is just awful because when you try and peek around a corner, you have to go around the entire corner because this gun is rear mounted. It's not like something with an Object 268 where you can just kind of like peek with the front and you won't have to turn too far, but this tank pretty much has to go around the entire corner. And also you can't side scrape well because this gun does not go far enough to the right or to the left. So it's just really the soft stats, in my opinion, that kill this tank. However, like I said earlier in this video, it can be used effectively, and I'm going to show you in some gameplay. Now, as far as loadout goes, and this is what I run for my equipment, so I've got gun rammer to maximize the DPM, because this tank does not have heat shells, so I feel like the penetration benefit from calibrated shells is really minimal, and the tank already has good AP pen, and the APCR shells will get the job done, so rammer for sure on that. I run optics because I play this really aggressive. However, like camo net is also a really excellent choice for this tank because this tank does have good camo and you can play it as a sniper. It's got fairly low alpha for a TD, but really either way works. I just prefer optics because I play aggressive, even though it's only a 5% bonus. GLD or supercharge. I run GLD just because I've said this before, but supercharge is incredibly useless, so I run GLD. And then extra HP and engine power boost. Like this tank is already really fast and it traverses extremely quickly. As you can see, like it's going to be like 36-ish base. That's already good enough. You don't really need the extra traverse, so I just run engine power boost on this since I don't run the engine power boost consumable. And then I also run vertical stabilizer because I play this aggressive, so I like being able to snapshot and things. And then this tank carries a lot of ammo. You can carry pretty much as much of whatever you want. I like to carry a lot of HE shells because I'm a big fan of the HE spam tactic. And then provisions, I run double food, 1 fuel. And then for consumables, this is one of the few tanks where I do not run engine power boost. I run adrenaline because since this is kind of a battering ram, when you get up in someone's face, you want to just melt them before they can kill you. Since again, like I already went over this, this tank can be penned all the time if they have shots on you, so really you just have to kill them before they can damage you significantly, and I think adrenaline really does help with that. Alright, so now I'm just going to jump into some gameplay. Alright, here we go guys, jumping straight into our first battle here on Port Bay. And so what we're going to do with the 263 here is I'm going to take this really aggressive towards C. And not actually the island though, because as I mentioned earlier, this tank does not have a lot of gun depression. So if I go to the island, I will not be able to make full use of this tank. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go super aggressive towards C because I do not want to be caught behind C. Because if you, like that area where I just crossed through, if you allow you and your team to get stuck there, the enemy is just going to tear you apart. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the enemy stuck on that area, as I knock my first shell of the game into that poor T-54, who is very lost and should not be there on that ramp. Awful position. And now what we're going to do is we've actually managed to catch pretty much their entire team out on this corner. And as you can see, they have awful cover. They're pretty much just completely in the open, which lets me use the armor and like the DPM of the 263 to just tear them apart. So as you can see, like, these guys aren't really taking much time to aim at my weak spots because I have so many tanks behind me. However, when they do get the chance to actually aim at my weak spots like that Patton did, they will hit them. But all these misses and bounces are really helping my case here, as I can just keep pressing forward and just keep ripping them apart with the DPM of the 263 as I shut down that pesky 183 who missed me earlier. And yeah, that E100 slams one into my lower plate, but it's not a big deal. Because I have so much DPM, I can just afford to really just keep going, as the Gorilla also misses my lower plate. And that's what I was talking about earlier. At long ranges, it can be pretty difficult to hit those small weak spots on the 263. And now we're about 2 minutes into the game, and it's pretty much wrapped up. Like, this Yagtig is about to fall because he's isolated, so I'm just going to go up and over donk my shot to the ground, but it's okay. Even though he's got a faster reload than me, he does not manage to pen his shot, and I do pen mine. So he's dead, and now it's 4-1. And something I found kind of comical about this replay is the enemy team actually took the time to sit on A cap for 20 seconds instead of immediately turning around to help their team. That's a quarter of the battle elapsed, and they just let their team die. And it's one of my personal pet peeves when I have teammates on Supremacy who just waste their time capping, as I slam an HE shell into the back of that Patton. And this Patton tries to run away and ends up gifting me my 3rd kill. So I'm going to get revenge on this gorilla who tried to shoot at me earlier. And he can go back to the garage. And as you can see, I can just leisurely close out this game. And I know this WZ is out here because he capped A. So I'm about to teach him a lesson for why you don't cap bases on Supremacy when your team's getting wrecked. And this is kind of funny because I actually somehow donked my shell, ricocheted off the driver's hatch. I was hoping that my shell would skip into his turret, but no dice, as we end the game on 5 kills and 6,400 damage, which is a pretty solid result for the 263. And I really liked how this replay showcased the armor and the DPM potential of the 263 when you can put it to work. Alright guys, here's our second game here on Winter Malinovka. And at the beginning of the battle, what my plan is I'm going to try and make use of the mobility of the 263, and I'm just going to try and outflank where I think they're going to be. Considering their team setup is so heavy, I'm pretty sure they're all going to be at C. And even if there are tanks at A, I've got my Batjet buddy over there, and we can pretty much just run over any medium tanks that do decide to go A. However, this time, there are no medium tanks, so I'm not going to bother with that A cap, because I need to be in position to quickly support my heavies in case they do push. I'm not making the mistake that WZ 111-14 from last game. I catch their gorilla napping in their spawn. I miss my shot, which is kind of unfortunate. I also spot the Leopard and the T-54 kind of in the open. And I'm just struggling to find a shot on these mediums. And this is one of the times when I wish I had a turret, because without the turret, trying to find these shots is kind of awkward. But I find my first shell onto the Leopard, and the T-54 misses me and hits my upper plate. And he's stuck, so I don't really blame him for missing that shell, as that gorilla narrowly misses his into my side. Now, if the gorilla had managed to find that shot, he would have been able to HE my side, and that would have been half my hit points gone. So, luckily for me, he did miss that shot, and my teammates drop him towards a one-shot. And my shot goes wide to the left there, which is pretty unfortunate, because that gorilla gets to live to fight for another couple seconds, but it's not a big deal, as this Leopard realizes what's going on. He's trying to run away. He runs into his friendly grill, and I somehow find the tiniest angle with HE into his side. And I'm going to just shut down this Leopard as my teammate Batchat gets the grill. And you can see, just like last game, we're 2 minutes into the game, and I've already done 2k damage, and our team is already up 3-1. And this is really the strength of the 263. You can use that mobility and that DPM to get into position quickly and just tear things apart before the enemy really has time to react. In this 268, he was going for a flank. No, thank you, sir. I will not let you flank my teammates. As I track him, and I put a second into him, and a max roll. That's just icing on the cake. And now this IS-7 is isolated, so I decided to go for him. And, like, this is where the 263 really shines, when you're going up against, like, these inaccurate, low DPM heavies. Because as you saw, that IS-7 missed a shell on me earlier because of that low accuracy. And now, even with Adrenaline, look how long he had to wait just to get another shot. And in that time, I've pretty much killed him. So now, the enemy team has brought it back 4-4. But since our team did take the time to cap A, like, the outcome of this game is not really in doubt, as I shut down this 268. And now it's 3-2. That T-57, I think, ends up killing another one of my teammates, but it's not a big deal, as I put one to the side of the E5. And really, this is what the 263 is all about. You just drive up to people, annihilate them with the DPM, and move on to the next target, just never letting up on that aggression. So this T-57, he's kind of looking around awkwardly because he's on reload, and I quickly realized it, and I decided to go aggressive onto him as well. And we put ourselves over 6k with this next shot on the E5. I decided to shoot the E5 to save my Leopard friend, and as you can see, our Leopard does pick up the kill thanks to that Although in hindsight, I kind of wish that he had killed the leopard, because that would have given me a little more time to farm this T57. So I'm kind of sad that I didn't get to go above 7k. But you know, 6.5k damage, mastery badge. I mean, asking for more would be greedy. So that's our second game wrapped up. And that's all for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed the guide, and bye.